Hi, I'm Tanya, and today I will tell you my story. It started when I met Marcos, my boyfriend. At first, we were just friends, although I had secretly liked him for a long time. Something told me that he felt the same way too, but I wasn't sure and I was too embarrassed to ask him. Until one day, he invited me to the movies. After watching a movie that I barely paid attention to because I was only thinking about whether he would hold my hand or put his arm around my neck, we went to dinner. The place was not exactly romantic. A hamburger restaurant, where only 3 tables were occupied and the owner of the bar was watching a soccer game while scrapping the grill with a spatula. And there, while ketchup dripped down my lip and my face was full of grease, Marcos confessed his feelings to me and we kissed. It was magical. It is clear that the place is the least important thing when you're in love. I keep that memory in my mind as an unforgettable moment. Since then, we've been dating. We understand each other very well and we're madly in love. We spend almost the entire day together. We go to the same school, we meet at recess, and then we spend the afternoon together. In my house, they love him like another son. Our trust and the way we get along is incredible. I'm living a love story that seems straight out of a movie, and I couldn't be happier. Look at the level of trust we have as a couple that Marcos knows one of my biggest secrets. Something that I'm very ashamed of others knowing, but with him it's different. And what is it and how did I tell him? Well, for that we have to go back a while. A few years ago, I had an accident while playing in the park and I hurt myself badly. The blow was so strong that they ended up putting a cast on each arm. I spent 1 month in that situation and I needed help with everything. Showering, eating, and even going to the toilet to relieve myself. My parents became my full-time assistants. Fortunately, this happened in the summer because I don't even want to think what it would have been like to have to go to school in those conditions. Don't believe that at 13 years old, it's super nice that your mother has to wipe your butt when you've finished having your bowel movements. I hope you never have to find yourself in this embarrassing situation. Well, going back to the story. Every daily task for me was torture. I didn't even feel like eating and I lost a lot of weight. I was already quite skinny, but that situation left me without appetite and upset. Of course, this affected my health, and my parents were worried because if I didn't eat well, I wouldn't be able to recover. So one day, my mother thought of preparing milk with powdered cereals for me, like babies, in a bottle. At first, I was totally reluctant to eat that, but I agreed to it. And it was delicious. So when I hadn't eaten much, it was a good way to eat extra food, and it was much more convenient for my parents. After finishing their food and sitting on the couch, I would rest my head on their lap and they would feed me the bottle while we watched TV. Almost without realizing it, I devoured all that warm milk. It felt so good that I finally gained some weight and felt healthier and stronger. It was a small detail that made the difference in my recovery. And how did all this end? Well, after they removed the cast from my arms, I continued drinking bottles with milk and baby cereal. Finally, I had managed to reach the weight that corresponded to me, because I was always quite thin and had some health problems. Since I started bottles, I never got sick, I was in perfect health, and I felt better than ever, both inside and out. I know some of you will think, well, you could have just had the milk in a glass. But I have to clarify that it didn't taste the same. Besides, who would it hurt if I'd enjoyed my milk in a bottle? When I started dating Marcos, of course, I kept my big secret hidden. But over time, we spent so many hours together that sometimes I wanted to have some milk at home for dinner, and I didn't want to have to eat anything else. So in the end, I decided to tell him. Honestly, I was worried about his reaction, but to my surprise, he took it very naturally. Marcos not only accepted my custom with a smile, but he even helped me get my favorite bottles and cereal. My whole life was a fantasy movie. I was happy and had everything. Until last week, when my nightmare began. I had arrived at school like every morning, and as I entered the hallway, I noticed that everyone seemed to be whispering things about me. They whispered, pointed, and even giggled. I felt very uncomfortable. So I called Marcos, who hadn't yet arrived, but he didn't answer. So I decided to ignore all those who seemed to be making fun of me and continue on my way to class. Then the girl I liked the worst in class because of her way of being critical approached me. With a mocking voice, she greeted me, and then she began to make a gesture with her hands, as if she were sucking on a pacifier or a baby bottle. I began to notice heat in my head, and I told myself that it couldn't be. No one knew that secret. Then Jennifer told me, "Oh, Tanya, how deceived you were, all of us. We didn't know we had a baby in class. Do you drink the milk from the bottle, or is it still your mother's?" I wished that the earth would swallow me because of the great shame I was suffering. More classmates quickly joined in the mocking comments, but my horror didn't end there. There was an Instagram account of an anonymous person from the school who shared the gossip and rumors of the students. No one knew who he or she was, but at that moment, that was the least of my concern. Who was in the last post? Me. A photo that my father had taken of me one day at home, while I was drinking my bottle. When Jennifer put the image in front of me, I didn't know what to respond, and I started to stutter. Tears quickly began to run down my cheeks, and I went straight to the bathroom to cry. I sat in the toilet for a long time. I just wanted to hide from everything. I felt so ashamed. I called Marcos again. I needed someone to comfort me at that moment, but he still didn't answer the phone. I thought maybe he was already in the classroom and he couldn't answer me, but I was surprised. We always met before class to greet each other and say good morning. While I was still locked up there alone, I began to think about how the image of my bottle had been leaked. And I thought about who was the only person who knew my secret, and who could have had access to that photo in my house besides my parents. It couldn't be. It had been my boyfriend. The idea that Marcos had betrayed me hurt me deeply. Tears flowed uncontrollably, mixing with the sound of laughter and conversation outside the bathroom. I felt lost and hurt. The confidence I thought I had was fading, leaving me with a broken heart and the uncertainty of how to deal with that situation at school. But then I gathered my strength, wiped away my tears, and left the bathroom. That wasn't going to work for me. And at that exact moment, who did I meet? Marcos. He came with an apparently worried face. He told me that he had been looking for me all morning and he wanted to make sure I was okay. Was I okay? Nothing was going to be right after that. I screamed at him hysterically and told him I would never trust him again. It turns out that he didn't know anything about the publication of the photo on the Instagram account because his cell phone had been stolen the day before after leaving my house. Someone had found it and had sent that compromising image to the school's most viral account. Tanya, how would I do something like that? I would never reveal your secret. You're my girlfriend, and I love you. Listening to Marcos made me feel a little bit better. The problem was still there, but at least I knew that the person I had loved so much for 3 months hadn't betrayed me. I hugged him and cried. He kissed me on the forehead and told me not to worry and promised me that he would fix everything. Just feeling his strong hug made me less nervous and ready to continue class with the other classmates. I spent the day a little uneventful, and when night came, I made myself promise that I would put aside all negativity and not give everyone what they were looking for. That is, look embarrassed. I would act like nothing had happened. The next day, I entered the school hallway determined, and my plan seemed to be working. The moment the others saw that their comments and mockery didn't hurt me, they stopped laughing at me. That had helped me take some of the drama out of it. Even throughout the morning hours, I was a little forgetting the subject of the photo. When the siren announcing departure sounded, I went straight to look for Marcos because we always waited to return home together. When I left class, he wasn't waiting for me at the door, which surprised me. I was walking on my way to his classroom and suddenly, I saw him arguing with one of his best friends. At that same moment, I put myself between the two, trying to stop that argument and ask them what had happened to them. Marcos stopped and grabbed my hand, and without saying a word, we left the school. When the situation seemed to have calmed down a bit, I asked him why he had argued with his friend, and he told me it was because he had heard him laughing at me. I didn't like him having problems with others, much less getting into arguments. Although, selfishly, I felt a little relieved that it had all been to defend me. Before we returned to our house, we decided to spend a little time together, and we sat on a park bench. We were talking about how our day had gone and how much we had missed each other during class hours. Then I gave him a hug. And when I was about to separate from him, I felt like something in his pants started to vibrate. I asked him if he had already bought a new phone so soon, and he said yes. He seemed a little nervous though. "Oh, and which one did you buy? How's the camera? Can you show it to me?" I asked. And suddenly his attitude changed and he said no. I started laughing, knowing that he loves to mess with me and play pranks on me from time to time, but his face didn't seem to change. He was serious, and that automatically made me think that something was wrong. I insisted that he show it to me, and he continued to bend it over until suddenly I reached into his pocket and pulled it out. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was his usual phone. He couldn't hide it because it had the glass broken on one side and the casing that I had given him a few weeks ago. The same phone that had supposedly been stolen from him. My head started to spin. Had he lied to me about stealing his phone so I wouldn't know that he had sent the photo to the school gossip account? He had betrayed me and then lied to me to hide it. He had his head down and asked me for forgiveness, although he was still very nervous and constantly asked me to give him the phone back. What did it matter if I had the phone? I had already discovered the problem. But no, oh friends, I still had the icing left. Marcos kept telling me how sorry he was while his phone kept vibrating. Notifications kept coming. I turned the phone towards him and unlocked it with his face detector. And where did all those alerts come from? From the gossip Instagram. And he was the owner of the account. He had betrayed me in the meanest way to gain just a few likes and followers. I ran out of there, super upset, and took his cell phone with me, being careful not to block it. It was clear to me that I was going to take revenge. I was going to publish the most embarrassing thing in his life so that everyone would laugh at him. I would make him pay for all the ridicule he had put me and many other schoolmates through. Ideas kept coming to my mind, each one worse than the last. But just as I was about to carry them out, I changed my mind. I wasn't going to be the same type of person. What would I become if I did the same? Well, in another bad person like him. So, I decided to make the last post on that account before requesting its definitive deletion from Instagram. I revealed the true identity behind that anonymous profile, the one who dedicated himself to using a nickname to criticize and saying all the things that he would not be able to face. The one who didn't care about hurting people's feelings to gain popularity and the ridiculous laughter of 4 characters as rude as him. I didn't insult, I didn't use violence, and I signed that revelation with my name. I even signed it with a baby bottle at the end. And I assure you, I felt the greatest taste of victory. The next day, it was all applause when I arrived at school, and my classmates couldn't stop asking me for forgiveness for laughing at me because of the photo. On the contrary, Marcus was looking at the ground, trying to avoid everyone and entering directly into class. I was happy for the attitude of my classmates, who after realizing their mistakes and how terrible bullying is, weren't like him, and did not fall into mockery or insults. And what purpose has this lesson had for me? Well, so that I can say out loud that anyone who doesn't accept me as I am and who laughs at me with others will have no place in my life. Signed, the baby bottles. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.